The courtroom is silent as Cody Brown finally looks up, his jaw clenched, his hand shaking, as a judge gets ready to ask him the one question that he never thought that he would ever be answering. He has 4 wives, decades of secrets, and now all the lies that he told will be revealed. If you think you understand the sister-wives family dynamic, stick with me and answer in the comments below what you think the biggest secret in the family might be. Who? There's a whiff of aged wood and stale coffee in the courtroom, the type of atmosphere that seems to be stuck in a perpetual state of suspended time. Christine sits on the side of the room, her shoulders square, but her entwined hands a tight knot in her lap. Janelle is a few rows back from Christine, looking poised, but her eyes dart constantly to Cody, as if preparing for the collision that is to come. Mary fixes her stare on the floor, a stone-faced woman who understands that emotion is a tool to be turned against her. Then, of course, there's the ever-emotional Robin. She's the closest to Cody, her eyes blurring in anticipation of the tears that will very shortly be streaming. Cody adjusts his tie for the 3rd time in less than a minute. It's just a show, Cody tells himself, just a different audience, filled with people judging me, evaluating me, without a clue about who or what I am. This time, however, is different. Cody is not the storyteller. Cody is the story. Cody is the one being asked questions. The judge clears his throat, and it has an instant impact on the size of the courtroom itself. This situation didn't begin with us. It began years ago, in secret, with whispered vows, lopsided accounts, and a family that was already breaking down well before it ever made it to television. Christine remembers the first time she realized that something was off. Not off in the big, explosive way, but off in the small, insidious way that seeps into your very bones. It was a phone call about finances. Just finances. Or so she thought. Cody had been standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, telling her yet again why some new family expense would just have to wait. Meanwhile, Robin's home renovations always seemed to be right on the edge of completion. Christine had just laughed off that incident that night, but later, alone, she wept. And it is here that the story really begins, not with trials, but with silences no one had been ready to keep. Years go by in flashes. Birthday celebrations are skipped, anniversaries are forgotten, sentences are left unfinished. Janelle begins to make mental calculations, later physical ones, dates, numbers, transfers, who owes whom what, and who didn't. She does not voice any concerns. Janelle has always been a practical woman, a logical woman, but logic applies only when all parties are on a leveled playing ground. Mary feels herself fading away, not just from Cody, but from the family story as a whole. She becomes the convenient target, the go-to when things get ugly. And every time she tries to speak up for herself, she feels as if the air grows chillier. Robin is crying, frequently, passionately, publicly, and every tear seems to draw Cody closer to her, as if her tears are the only ones that count. Cody convinces himself that he's keeping everything together. This means he has to make tough calls, so if others are feeling left out, he believes they're just not aware of the burden he carries. But deep down, he has an unnamed fear. Because control only works if no one opposes it. The first legal paper arrives with no fanfare. No cameras are snapping to catch the moment. No lawyer stands at a podium to make the announcement. It comes in the form of an envelope slipped across a desk. Janelle reads the letter twice before she can bring herself to believe its contents. It's a dispute over finances, joint properties, land promised but never delivered. Coyote Pass has suddenly become more than simply land. It's evidence. Fight is not what Christine wants at the start of the story. She wants peace. She wants a way out. But peace, as she finds, costs when the other side has no intention of letting go. But what no one vocalizes yet is that this family split was no ordinary family split. It is a ticking time bomb. On the day it becomes public knowledge, Cody blows up. He paces, he yells, he points fingers at all of them for the betrayal. He calls it disloyalty. Robin breaks down in tears, sobbing that she never intended for it to come to this, only for the family to be together. Her voice trembles when it comes to money. In the courtroom, simple questions are asked first. Names, dates, ties. However, every answer begets a doorway into something darker. Christine speaks calmly in court. Too calmly. Her words don't shake beneath her tears as she speaks of neglect. They shake as she speaks of the children, of watching them stand by windows, of justifying their absence with excuses that ceased to be credible long ago. Janelle follows, and this is when the dynamic energy within the room changes. Since Janelle does not speak out of emotion, she speaks out of records, numbers, receipts. Janelle speaks like stones. Cody interrupts once. He is quickly cut off by the judge. Mary shocks everyone by agreeing with some of what Janelle said in the testimony. Not in anger or in retaliation, but in exhaustion. Silence can pay dividends for so long before the dam breaks. Robin's turn has not yet come. She looks on, eyes open wide, hand shaking. For the first time, the tears fail. Not here. And if you're feeling a rise in tension at this point, it's because the most dangerous testimony has barely even begun. The session adjourns for the day. However, no one is able to unwind. Cameras are lined up outside the courthouse. The questions begin to flow. Cody blows past without saying a word. Robin whispers that the truth will soon see the light, but she does not reveal what that truth may be.
Christine holds her tongue. For just an instant, she looks straight ahead, taking in oxygen as if someone who was engulfed in fire has just escaped. Inside, Janelle sits alone, looking at her cell phone, rereading a message that she hasn't replied to yet. A message that can change everything. Because come tomorrow, a document will appear which will surprise everybody, and the court will be obliged to pose a question which might explode the final illusion of a united Africa. So, before I continue, I want to ask, what side are you on in this situation, and why? Provide your thoughts in the comments, because what happens next will change everything. The court opens on the second day much like the first, tense to the point where the sensation becomes physical, pressing against the chest so people breathe consciously rather than automatically. But as all parties take their seats, there is a shift in power, because now the family realizes that feelings will no longer suffice. They will be required to provide proof. Cody enters the courtroom stiff as a board, face set in a determined scowl, eyes straight ahead as if daring people to doubt him. But the confidence in his step barely extends past his shoulders, while Robin holds on to her box of tissues as if they are a shield against the impending tears. Those may come, those may not. Christine's gaze avoids all three men in the room as if they are festering sores on a righteous barrel, fixating on the district attorney's desk instead as if waiting for a miracle on a different plane. Janelle's position is serene. Notes are stacked perfectly in front of her in a dignified manner, as if to show that even in court, order can be maintained with a mere tidy gesture, as if a hint of polish will suffice. As the district attorney finally brings the court to order, time itself expands. All conversation ceases in mid-sentence, as if people are waiting for permission to exhale. Sounds seem amplified, the rustling of papers louder than the disturbance warranted. Testimony commences as the attorney presents financial exhibits. Cody's head automatically jerks up a microscopic fraction of a millimeter, as if preparing to spring out at a word. This is noticeable if a person is paying close attention. The first item on the list is rather mundane on its face, a mere timeline detailing joint income and spending over the years. But when mentioned out loud in court, little patterns tend to materialize. Funds channeled in one particular direction, crucial spending done without consulting the rest, promises kept in a speech rather than on paper. Janelle's facial expression remains a blank slate, because at this point in time, there is little left in the testimony for her to be surprised at again. Mary's lips slightly open as a flicker crosses her face. This time, there is either disinterest on her face or something even closer to a sadness. This hurts. Cody shifts uncomfortably in his chair, as if eager to explain away everything. Nothing he has to offer stays on course in any concrete manner. He talks a mile a minute, as if in him lies a master salesman preaching leadership rather than making a point. But upon a brief observation for what appears to be a split second in time, not near long enough but long enough nonetheless, everything alters in its entirety. The lawyer pauses and asks a question that seems innocuous on the face of it, trying to get Cody to clarify how the family funds had been split once Robin was brought into the family fold for the first time. And for the first time in the proceedings, Cody pauses too long. There's an awkward moment of silence. Robin looks at him pleadingly with her eyes to go on, but the pause has already inflicted its wound. When he responds, he does so in a defensive rather than factual manner, and the judge listens intently. It's in her chest that Christine feels the moment of truth is finally suffusing on its own. The lawyer continues in her layered fashion. She isn't condemning, but simply lets Cody speak, and with each succeeding answer, he generates more contradictions than can be contained on a single playing card face down on the table. When Janelle is summoned to return to the witness box, she is even in her delivery, almost to the point of being gentle, and in that way makes her revelations doubly painful. She talks about trust in a way that refers to more than mere semantics in a relationship that was based on trust in the first place, and how this trust was gradually undermined over time, and not in one fell swoop, but drip by drip, until there was nothing left to be standing on. She isn't raising her voice. She isn't pointing an accusing finger. She simply states her case, and in doing so, she lays everything bare for the world to see. Tears are streaming down Robin's face now as she bursts out sobbing and head shaking as she protests she didn't direct the family purse strings and only did what she was told to by Cody himself.
but her words seem to be recited from an unrehearsed memorized script, to which she must refer in order to be said in exactitier. This is precisely the moment at which emotions are no longer worth the effort put into evidentiary production. The judge listens avidly to every statement, occasionally writing down copious notes as he does so, while the onlookers in the courtroom shift in their places, because this isn't reality television anymore. This is hard fact. Next is summoned Mary's turn to speak.
Nobody knows quite what to expect at this point, not even Mary. She is picking her words articulately, as if she is walking through broken glass to confess she stayed silent for so long out of a combination of reasons: loyalty to family, out of fear, and out of simple habit, so that this is now her role in play, whether she wants it to be so or not. She does not place blame, nor does she protect anyone, and this is so damaging. The muscles in Cody's face grow tight, and for an instant, anger flashes, not at the prosecuting allegations, but at having no control, as this is definitely not how and where this is going down. The lawyer produces a final contract for ending the day, and this one is like a body blow, as it is a contract set up numerous years ago, but has never been publicly stated, setting up conceptual divisions of assets that never came to fruition. The shock in the room is palpable, gasps not audible, but surely felt. Robin ceases her sobbing, replaced by a look of complete bewilderment, as her mind seems to be processing faster than her feelings, like her head is spinning faster than her heart. Christine closes her eyes, taking in the full impact of what is being presented, since the document represents years of being told she is crazy, that none of this is real. Just as you think you've witnessed enough, there is one question being asked by the court that no one is prepared for. The judge asks for one reason, one explanation, one insightful thought as to why this document has not been implemented, not amended, not addressed, and amicably remedied, and the courtroom watches in anticipation. Cody opens his mouth, closes it, opens it, and finally speaks, his words vague and full of rhetoric, as now he realizes that what he carefully constructed is rapidly falling from his hands. The courtroom is adjourned, but now everyone knows, regardless of what happens tomorrow, that financial arrangement is now a thing of yesterday, since tomorrow is now about motivations. The family members, without saying a thing, without every individual exchange, without every anguished glance, drift away, leaving everyone alone. The night settles in, as everyone, including those not in attendance, moves forward, as now and tomorrow, nothing is about fiscal realities.
The night moves in as everyone, including those not in attendance, moves forward, since in tomorrow, nothing is about fiscal realities. The question looming, already present in everyone's minds, is quite simple, quite ominous, since in tomorrow, nothing is about fiscal realities. Already being asked is not how, but why, as in tomorrow, nothing is about fiscal realities, since in tomorrow, nothing is about fiscal realities. The third day of trial begins without conversation, without eye contact, without the tense energy that once pulsed in the room, now that everyone understands that today, this day, is about the power of motive, and the courtroom seems to grow even colder, the lights even brighter, the silence even sharper, as if the very walls are preparing for the impact. Cody sits a little straighter, a lot straighter, as if a correction in posture can will away the lack of control, while Robin leans in close, whispering softly, urgently, in a whisper that is intended to be soothing, but is instead primal, the kind of whisper that's meant to be reassuring, but is instead a reflection of raw fear. Christine is the last to arrive, but there is no rush, no hesitation, and this time, for the first time, she looks Cody dead in the eye. But this isn't a look of anger. No, this is a look of something far, far more menacing: indifference. Janelle is aware of this, of the transition, of the moment of understanding that a person reaches in which they cease fighting, cease living, in order to simply be. This gives the shallowest of kings in her chest. Then court is called to order, and the judge informs the court that today will focus on the themes of intent, on the action of choice, on the recognition of accountability, words that are felt as pellets hitting flesh, simply because the mind of intent can't be filtered by the intention of excuse. The attorney is methodical in his questioning, reminding Cody of statements, of clips, of interviews that seemed small in the scheme of things, but take on a new and very different life as he listens in mortified disgust to the sounds of his own words and the realization that there's nothing to filter, nothing to muffle, and nothing to excuse. Cody tries to speak, but he catches himself, understanding that now, the reactions of everyone in the room are being watched. This is the juncture at which the story leaves the fact of what happened and enters the territory of why.
Christine is called to the witness stand once again, this time bearing a very different quality, this time bearing the aura of a grief that's been anticipated, of a realization that's reached and accepted before ever setting a foot in this place. She speaks of promises that in the quiet, in the secret, in the promise of the heart, in the very shadows of the soul, said that in the light of the world, in the view of the crowd, simply did not match, and of someone being told to wait, to be patient, to understand, to see, while in the meantime Nur is giving immediate answer. But the questions aren't asked of her, the questions aren't directed, and the differences paint a very stark picture in the air. As she talks of sleeping alone, of explaining her absence to her children, of soaking up all the blame which was not hers to take, for the first time there comes a cost, not measured in dollars, but in years. Robin's sobbing resumes, yet it comes more quickly now, less repressed, and when she is finally placed on the stand to testify, it becomes instantaneous. Her voice chokes with conviction as she asserts she never asked for privilege, only for division, only for a lack of understanding on her part for which of her siblings felt left out. But with each passing moment, she finds herself trapped by her own statements, focusing on her own emotions, confusion, suffering, as the judge sits squarely on his bench, not unkindly, no, not by a long shot, but as a critic. When asked point-blank as to whether she directly or indirectly gained from her family members' ill, Robin hesitates just a moment too long, her eyes fixed on Cody before snapping them to the face of the judge, as she asserts her faith in her husband's leadership as a means to shift culpability, to forge unity. And here, within these moments, it dawns on everyone in the room that it's no longer a question of innocence to be proven, it's a question of collective guilt. Next comes Janelle's testimony, which varies from each witness's merely by degree, as it's multifaceted, calculated, like a scalpel to a surgeon's hand. She speaks of warnings given for what was considered only to be a temporarily implemented strategy, of doubts stifled by ridicule when one spoke of impending doom, of questioning authority as though she had committed treason, as with each passing moment one comes to grasp not only what happened, but by which skillful means it was suppressed. She talks of being made to feel like a troublemaker for merely asking questions, of watching as resources trickled into only 2 pockets when she had been told that what really counted was unity rather than equality, which, as she utters each word with such measured composure, cuts only more precisely. Mary is the last one called, and by this time the courtroom feels raw, whittled down to nerves and truth. Mary hesitates before speaking, then admits something nobody expected, that she often knew things were wrong, but kept silent because it was safer than being blamed again, because being invisible felt easier than being attacked. And as she speaks, even Cody looks away, because this is a consequence he can't argue against. If you think this is the emotional peak, it's not, because the toughest question hasn't been asked yet. The attorney turns back to Cody and asks him to explain, in his own words, how decisions were made when there was disagreement. And for the first time, audibly, Cody's confidence cracks. He talks about leadership, needing order, feeling disrespected. But under pressure, those words unravel into something else. Control disguised as structure, authority mistaken for unity. The judge presses further, asking if leadership ever became justification. The ensuing silence is deafening. Cody answers finally, but it's defensive, emotional, rooted in resentment rather than reason, and this shift is unmistakable. During a brief recess outside the courtroom, Robin confronts Christine quietly, her voice sharp beneath the tears, accusing Christine of rewriting history. Christine listens, then responds softly. History doesn't need rewriting when it finally gets told, a sentence landing harder than any shouted argument. This is the point where everything changes, though nobody says it out loud yet. When court resumes, the judge welcomes a surprise witness, a financial mediator previously involved years ago in private discussions.
The room stiffens instantly, because here is a person with no emotional allegiance, only memory. The mediator testifies that imbalanced concerns were raised early, warnings given, and solutions suggested but never put in place. And as each detail unfolds, Cody's narrative collapses further, not because he's being attacked, but the pattern is undeniable. Robin's shoulders slump. Christine closes her eyes briefly. Janelle exhales slowly, and Mary stares at the floor, because this is the confirmation none of them wanted, but all of them needed. And just when the truth feels complete, the question the judge asks shifts the entire trajectory of the case. She asks whether reconciliation was ever genuinely pursued, or whether the appearance of unity mattered more than actual fairness, and the room waits, breath held, because the answer will define everything that comes next. Cody starts to speak, stops, swallows, and for the first time his voice lacks conviction. And in that moment, everyone understands that tomorrow won't be about testimony or documents or explanations anymore. It will be about consequences. Court adjourns in heavy silence, the kind that lingers even after the doors close, and as the family exits separately once more, the distance between them feels permanent, not physical, but emotional, like a bridge finally collapsing after years of strain. Christine walks into the evening air feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Janelle stares at her phone, knowing messages will come she can't ignore anymore. Mary pauses on the steps longer than anyone else, and Robin clings to Cody, whispering desperately about fighting back, while Cody stares ahead, jaw tight, realizing too late that control doesn't survive exposure. And as night settles in, one truth hangs unspoken but undeniable. The next session won't be about who was hurt. It will be about who must answer for it. The fourth day opens under a heavy gray sky that mirrors the mood inside the courthouse. And by the time everyone takes their seats, it's clear this session will be different. Because today isn't about explaining the past anymore. It's about facing the damage it caused. Cody looks exhausted now, the sharp edge of defiance dulled by sleepless nights and whispered strategy sessions that haven't produced answers, while Robin sits rigid beside him, eyes red but dry, as if she's cried herself empty. Christine enters quietly, nodding once to her attorney. She's calm, grounded even, but not hard-won, as if the sensation has been earned.
Janelle follows, a steady resolution in her bearing, the sense that she has already accepted whatever outcome might come next. Mary lingers near the door for a moment before she sits, her face unreadable, but her posture tense, because she knows today may finally force her into the open in ways she can't control. The judge calls the court to order and immediately addresses the room. This session will cover emotional harm, parental impact, long-term consequences, words landing like a slow drumbeat, each one echoing louder than the last. Christine is called first, and when she starts to speak, her voice is low but unyielding, speaking not just to what was done, but how it felt to slowly disappear inside a marriage that needed loyalty while offering diminishing care. She speaks of watching children internalize absence, of the way disappointment becomes normalized when it happens often enough, and with each word spoken, even those in the gallery shift uncomfortably, because this is not abstract pain, it's lived reality. Cody doesn't meet her gaze. He looks instead at the table, his jaw tight, fingers flexing, releasing, flexing, because there is no argument to be made here, no counterpoint that can take away what's already been said. And right here, the courtroom realizes this case is no longer only about adults, but about the children who had no say in any of it. Then comes Janelle's testimony, which cuts differently because she speaks about responsibility, staying longer than she should have because stability seemed more important than fair play, and about the moment she knew protecting peace sometimes means walking away from it. She describes how children noticed the imbalance long before adults admitted it, how questions came for which there were no safe answers, and how silence started to feel like complicity. Robin shifts in her seat, her head shaking, whispering under her breath, visibly fighting how to make this version of events merge with hers, and when she's Wenli called to the stand, the room holds its breath. Robin's voice cracks as she insists she never meant to hurt anyone, that she believed in the family structure, trusted Cody's leadership, and assumed others did too. But the judge presses gently, asking if belief absolves impact, and Robin falters, her eyes blinking rapidly as she searches for words that don't come. This is the moment where intention smashes into consequence, and neither will emerge unscathed.
Mary is next, and palpably the room shifts, because Mary has always been the silent constant, the pain acknowledged but never quite dug into, until today, which finally allows her to speak in full. She says too often she felt like the warning example, a reminder of what happened to you when you fell out of favor, and that it was fear rather than love that shaped her choices. Her voice trembles when she speaks of the isolation, being there yet unseen, and even Cody looks up briefly, his eyes clouded, for this is a truth he is never prepared to hear aloud. The judge listens closely and then turns to Cody to ask him to respond, not with defense, but with reflection, and for the first time, Cody seems unsure how to do that. He speaks in a hushed tone, acknowledging mistakes without fully naming them, framing harm as misunderstanding, but the words feel hollow in their weight in the air they occupy. If you're waiting for a turning point, this is your hesitation, because sometimes the silence can be louder than any denial. Then the attorney introduces statements from adult children, not live testimony, but written reflections, and as these are read out loud, the room grows unbearably quiet. Words like confusion, resentment, longing, disappointment hang suspended in their air, each one a mirror no one wants to look into, as Robin clenches her hands tightly and breathes shallowly, while Cody's shoulders sag further with each line read. Christine closes her eyes, absorbing in the weight of hearing her children's pain spoken in a public space, as Janelle stares straight ahead, her jaw set, as if anchoring herself through the impact. The judge pauses afterward, letting silence stretch, as some truths need space to land, and when she speaks again, she addresses the core issue directly, asking if at any time the public image ever came before private hurt.
The question cuts through the room like a blade, and nobody moves. Cody starts to answer, stops, swallows hard, and for the first time, his voice breaks, not in anger, but in something dangerously close to regret, though it's left unclear whether it's regret for the harm or regret over being exposed. And just when the emotional weight feels almost insurmountable, this session takes an unexpected turn.
The judge says the court will consider recommended mediated therapy, mandated and focused not on reconciliation, but on accountability and closure, a concept that visibly upsets Cody because closure suggests an ending he can't control. Robin urgently whispers to him, panic flashing across her face, as Christine exhales slowly, the idea of closure settling over her like relief. The court adjourns, and the family exits once more in fractured silence. But this time, the separation feels final, not dramatic, just inevitable. Outside, Christine pauses at the top of the steps, breathing in the cool air like someone stepping into freedom for the very first time, while Janelle checks her phone, already seeing messages from kids who sensed something shift today. Mary lingers again, longer than before, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand, and Robin clings to Cody, her voice tight with urgency, talking about fighting, about appeals, about not letting this define them. But Cody doesn't respond right away. He stares instead at the horizon, a look in his eyes that indicates he finally knows some battles don't end in victory, but in reckoning. One truth burrows under skin and settles in as night descends and the courthouse empties. The next session won't be about testimony or pain or explanation. The next session will be about judgment, and when it arrives, there will be no rewriting what comes next. The fifth session opens on silence that feels heavier than any argument, the stillness that settles in when everyone knows the end is near, but no one knows exactly how it's going to land. This energy is different, quieter, sharper, as every person present seems to understand today is about judgment, not just from the court, but from themselves. Cody enters the courtroom more slowly this time, shoulders slumped, calculation weighing in place of confidence. Robin sticks close, her hand dancing near his arm like she's afraid that he might drift away if she lets go. Christine sits calmly, hands folded, eyes forward. Not tense, not defensive, resolved. Janelle matches that steadiness. Her posture is grounded, and her expression is unreadable in a way that suggests settling rather than fear. Mary takes a seat last, her breath deep, as though gathering herself for words she can't take back. The judge calls the session to order and immediately states that today's focus is final arguments, accountability assessments, and recommended outcomes. The weight of those words presses into the room, because outcomes are permanent in a way testimony never is. Christine's attorney speaks first, with no aggression, no emotion, just clear, concise words that speak to a timeline of neglect, imbalance, and broken promises. This case is not about punishment, she says. It's about protection. Protection of autonomy, protection of children, protection of truth. Christine listens, her expression unchanged, because she has lived through every sentence being spoken, and hearing it summarized only confirms what she has known for a very long time. And right here, the story shifts from survival to resolution, whether anyone is ready or not. Janelle's lawyer follows, towing the line between financial responsibility and systemic patterns rather than pointing fingers at one decision. He instead evidences how those repeated choices made an environment where fairness wasn't even possible. Numbers and records once again are mentioned, and as they are, Cody stares down at the table, because he knows this is the way he cannot spin it. Then comes Mary's representation, brief and devastating, touting emotional isolation, power imbalance, and the cost of her silence. As she listens, Mary's eyes well up, not with sadness, but also with relief, knowing her experience isn't being minimized for once. It is now time for Cody's side, for immediately it starts off on a different place, because for the first time, he does not look ready. His attorney gets up to say, intent, complexity, of a family under unprecedented scrutiny, that mistakes were made and never malicious, of leadership imperfect, and of private struggles amplified by public nature. Robin nods in agreement, murmuring softly to herself, and the room is unconvinced, because intent has already been weighed in against impact, and impact has won. If what you had in mind was a dramatic defense, this unraveling silently is far more telling, because when Cody is given the opportunity to speak directly, the silence extends again, and for one moment, it feels like the whole courtroom is holding its breath. He starts by acknowledging pain. His voice is low,
strained.
Things went wrong, he says. He didn't see it coming. He underestimated the consequences of his actions. But as he speaks, the words falter, drifting towards justification. The judge interrupts him gently but firmly. This is not about explanation, she said. This is about responsibility. The question still hangs there in the air, and when Cody finally responds, something shifts inside. Not dramatically, not explosively, but subtly. He admits he prioritized order over fairness, control over communication, and image over repair. And the admission lands harder than any accusation ever could. Robin stiffens beside him, eyes wide, because this is not the defense they planned. Christine closes her eyes briefly, not in triumph, but in release. This is the moment when the final shreds of denial give way to truth, even if only incomplete. The judge asks if Robin would like to speak, and slowly she stands, visibly shaken, her voice trembling as she insists that she never wanted to be the center, never wanted to be chosen at the expense of others, that she believed the family structure would protect everyone, not divide them. But then when pressed if she ever questioned why benefits came to her while others struggled, she falters under the question, admitting in a hushed tone that she didn't ask questions she was scared to hear the answers to. The honesty, although fragile, ripples through the room, because avoidance is a form of choice, and for the first time, Robin seems to understand that. Mary is offered the chance to respond, and she speaks softly, saying she doesn't want revenge, only acknowledgement, only the freedom to exist without being defined by her silence, and her words feel like a closing door, gentle but firm. And just when it feels like everything has finally been said, the judge delivers the statement that changes everything. She speaks deliberately, addressing each party in turn, acknowledging the complexity of plural family dynamics, but emphasizing how this complexity does not excuse harm. Leadership requires accountability, and emotional neglect carries consequences just as real as financial ones. She outlines recommended rulings, property divisions, financial responsibilities, and mandatory accountability mediation, not to reunite the family, but to establish boundaries and closure. And as each point is read aloud, the reality of finality settles in.
Christine exhales slowly, something unclenching in her chest. Danelle nods once, already thinking about next steps. Mary wipes her eyes, steadier than she's been in years. Robin breaks down quietly, her tears finally flowing without restraint. And Cody sits frozen, staring straight ahead, for the first time ever, his authority formally limited. If you think this is where the story ends, you're missing the most important part. As the judge concludes, she pauses, then adds a final statement, addressing the children indirectly, acknowledging their voices, their pain, and the importance of healing outside the courtroom. And that acknowledgement feels like a balm and a wound all at once. Court adjourns, but no one moves right away, because endings are hard, even necessary ones. Outside, cameras wait, but Christine walks past them without stopping, her face calm, her steps steady, choosing peace over performance. Janelle follows, already on the phone, the softness of her voice reassuring and grounded. Mary lingers briefly, then steps into the sunlight with a quiet strength that wasn't there before. Robin clings to Cody again, crying openly now, whispering about rebuilding, about starting over, about not letting this be the final chapter. But Cody doesn't answer right away, because something inside him knows this chapter's already closed. As the courthouse empties and the day wears into evening, one question hangs unanswered, heavier than any ruling. When the noise dies down and the cameras leave, who will each of them be without the rules they clung to for so long? And will the truth they finally faced be enough to set them free, or will it haunt them long after the courtroom doors close?